I always wanted to be a mum, and I always wanted a big family as well. So yeah, that was something from a young age that I had visions of having a big family. We left getting married until we were perhaps a little bit older, and so we were keen to start a family as soon as God willed us to start a family, yeah. And it happened, I think, within a couple of years. We conceived with my oldest daughter, Faith.
I consider myself to be paternal. I'm an uncle to several nephews and nieces, and I've always played an active, role in their lives, as with Francesca, so in terms of taking them out on trips. And we have 5 children. The eldest is Faith. She's 19. Then Jude, our eldest son, is 18. Martha is our middle daughter. She is 15. Gabriel is our youngest son, and he is 11. And then we have Ruth, who's the baby of the family, although she is actually 9.
My mother was very strong Catholic, and so from being a young age, life and the issues surrounding life were always very important to our family. And then going into to teaching as well, where I teach issues surrounding life, the value of life, and life from conception and so on to young people. And I consider that to be a very important part of my vocation as a teacher, really, to try and encourage young people today to really think about those issues.
I have always considered myself to be pro-life as an adult, as someone who has had the presence of mind to consider that in its full entirety. Yeah.
I had absolutely no inclination about Ruth's condition at all. I was given the option of finding out because I was an older mother-to-be when I conceived with Ruth, and they were very sort of keen for me to have the test to find out if Ruth possibly could have a condition such as Down syndrome, but I never had the test with any of the children and never would have done. As I said to them then, it wouldn't have made any difference to the outcome.
Ruth had been born, so I was present during the birth, and that was really quite straightforward, wasn't it? Really, in terms of how that went. And I had left Francesca with Ruth at the hospital to pick the other children up who were at my mother's. And we'd gone to do some shopping to pick up some bits for their new sister. And it was while we were shopping that I got a call from Francesca, who was very distressed and saying that a doctor's just come into the room where I am with Ruth and has just suggested that there's a problem. You're aware of our concerns with Ruth and some of her features. But we weren't. We hadn't been made aware of any potential conditions that they felt Ruth may have had. So Francesca wasn't prepared for that. I wasn't prepared for that. So that was the first indication that Ruth had Down syndrome, and it was later confirmed, with the tests.
Although the nurses were absolutely lovely, and I can't fault them, but they did not have the knowledge at all to support me in that diagnosis. No one seemed to know anything at all about the condition.
I don't really know how we were introduced to the local T21 support group, to be honest with you. I don't know whether that came.
No, they have been instrumental throughout Ruth's life. They are a support group in Tameside for families and siblings, everyone involved with children with Down syndrome. And I think Ruth was almost 1 when I mustered up enough courage to go along to one of their meetings. And I have never looked back, really. They have been wonderful. I've made some wonderful friends, and Ruth's made some wonderful friends. And of course, they've got children at different stages now with Down syndrome, and so we can support each other. And we have been into the local hospital and left leaflets and things like that, so that parents in the future would have that support, because that's one thing I would have loved to have had if I'd had someone that had had experience of a child with Down syndrome be able to come to me and say, don't worry, it'll be wonderful, you know, everything will be fine. That would have made such a difference, and so hopefully that can now happen for other mums who are in the same position. We wouldn't change it for the world at all. I mean, you know, my fears on having her as a baby, I look back now, and if only I knew then what I know now, I would, you know, never have worried for a moment, because she is such a blessing. She brings so much to the family and adds so much to the family. She has changed us all. When Ruth started at Our Ladies, which is a mainstream Catholic school, they were very keen to support her and her needs, and the teachers straight away started to learn Makaton, and then it just grew from there. They started to incorporate it into the teaching, and now they have assemblies. Every song they sing as a school includes Makaton. Every year on Down Syndrome Awareness Day, they will all come together and they will use sign language, and it's just become second nature to them. And it was only recently a parent was talking about how much Ruth has brought to the school because of things like that, because of what the children have gained using Makaton and communicating with Ruth in that way. So yeah, they have been amazing with their support of Ruth. Oh, Father Simon has been amazing, really. He has absolutely supported us from day one. As I said, he came to see Ruth in the hospital the day she was born, and he has just been a source of strength and inspiration. He's supported us, he's helped us to raise funds, he's allowed us to use facilities, parish halls and so on, for us to have fundraising occasions.
I think the laws that currently exist within our country, particularly around abortion for children who have been diagnosed in the womb with Down syndrome are outrageous. I do feel as though they are preventing thousands of little Ruths from being part of our society. And we don't want to be the next Iceland. We don't want to be a country without children with Down syndrome or adults with Down syndrome. It is what it is, and we should be embracing it, as we should embrace all life.
Yeah.
I think there is certainly a potential for people to, certainly medical professional people, to perceive the potential for a child to be born with a disability as something negative. Or relate to individuals with respect to your age that it's risky, or there is a risk. I think there's a risk with everything. I don't feel as though there should be an automatic leaning towards the negative side of things when we're talking about the potential for someone to be different in some way. By virtue of a syndrome or something like that, That's right. There's a tendency for people to perceive Ruth from their own perspective in terms of, well, I wouldn't like to be like that, or I wouldn't like my child to be like that, because they've never experienced it. Because Ruth doesn't feel as though she's disadvantaged. Ruth just feels as though she's Ruth. She's enjoying her life to the full.
My children now, their experience of Ruth, first of all, they absolutely adore her, but also it has helped them to have an understanding of differences, and to understand that we are all different. And I think it's really been a very positive experience for them, because when they see anyone now with a disability, it isn't a shock to them, it isn't something they're frightened of or ignorant of. They are able to interact with people of all abilities or disabilities in the same way they do with Ruth, so it brings out a lovely side in the children. It really does. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and they also treat her like one of them.
They do.
And if she's getting on their nerves, then they tell her she's getting on their nerves. There's no special treatment in our house, and as far as that side of things is concerned. You know, outside of, you know, the special needs that Ruth has, she's treated as just one of the family, you know. So there's not much sway given if they're in. You know, it's a big family, and you know, there are times when each one of them has to stand their corner. So Ruth is more than able to stand in her corner as well, isn't she? So
I was only 11 when Ruth was born, so I didn't really know a lot about Down syndrome. So initially, my first thoughts were of things I did know, and they weren't particularly positive things. But I realised very quickly after she was born that I couldn't actually have asked for a better sister in so many ways, because the experiences I've had, I've had 3 younger siblings without including Ruth, so I had a lot of experience with it, but it was nothing, having Ruth was nothing like any of the others, because she's always got so much love to give, and I think that's one of the things that's made it such a different experience, because, you know, there isn't a day where she's not saying that she loves me, she loves everyone else, and she's also like, when I'm the day and I'm tired, she'll say, oh, you can pat her shoulders, or you can lie down on my shoulder. And I think that's something that makes it almost magical, is how much love she actually has for me, for the whole family. So it's very special. Yeah, I think the first thing I've learned from having a sister with Down syndrome is patience, because I've watched her grow up, and all the things that I've maybe taken for granted in my childhood, she's had to try that little bit harder to accomplish, you know, walking, talking, and also she struggles in certain situations, and I've got to be patient with her, and I think that's a really valuable lesson, because, you know, you go through life and you've got to have patience with all sorts of people, and I think Ruth has really taught me the value of being patient and waiting, and how good things can come when you are patient. And I have 2 very close friends. I have others, but 2 very close ones that I've been friends with since I was young, and they've essentially, some of them have known Ruth as long as I have, because they were friends with me back then. And there's always been, obviously they weren't as knowledgeable as like I wasn't at first, but, you know, they've always been positive, and, you know, in a lot of cases love as much as I do, because she's so open. She's always so open, and her reactions and the things she does are so like pure. It's just the first thing that comes into her head she'll say or she'll do, and they see that, and they think it's, you know, it's kind of, we can always all take something from that, because, you know, we're always second guessing everything we do and say, whereas with children like people like Ruth, there's never any kind of, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this or say this. They just do it, and I think that's something that, you know, my peers have definitely picked up on and like.
Yeah, there has been some difficult times where, yeah, like Faye said, I had to be more patient, but it also is a really nice thing to have someone who, I don't see them as different but unique, and it's really nice because she would see things differently to others, and she's also really good company when I'm bored. Like, I could never get bored while Ruth's around. I wouldn't treat them that different to someone who had, but I would maybe say things simpler, or help them to understand better what I'm trying to say if they don't understand, and I'd try and help them to like understand everything. So I would treat them very similar to what I treat someone else, but just give them that extra support that they need if they are struggling. So I did the presentation at my school because I wanted other people to see Down syndrome through my eyes, and actually tell them that it's not a negative thing and it's a positive thing, and it's really nice to have someone with Down syndrome in your family, but also to tell them what Down syndrome actually is, so that they have an extra chromosome. This is a poem for my little sister Ruth. It might take her a little bit longer, she goes at her own pace. It might take her a little bit longer because not everything has to be a race. It might take her a little bit longer to keep up with her friends. It might take a little bit longer, but she'll get there in the end. It takes me a little bit longer to see the world through her eyes, but when I finally get there, it should come as no surprise. The love, the laugh, the smile, the truth. She's not any burden, she's my little sister Ruth.